According to Law Insider, public safety means anything which is injurious to the safety or health of an entire community or neighborhood or any considerable number of persons. Nowhere in that definition are politics addressed. At Crime Stoppers of Houston, we believe in safety for all because we think your family matters just as much as ours does. Beginning in 2018, we noticed something potentially injurious to the safety of our entire community: the release of repeat, violent, felony offenders. Since our discovery, we have identified 91 victims who have lost their life to people who were released in Harris County on multiple felony bonds or personal recognizance bonds, who had a bond forfeiture, or who had a motion to revoke bond denied. Of those 91 victims, 70 were male, 18 were female, and 3 were unborn.
Houston Crime Stoppers has highlighted a very dangerous problem that we have in the state of Texas that is growing worse, and that is through the bail system, very dangerous criminals are being released out onto the streets. And when I say criminals, I'm talking about people who aren't just arrested of violating a law. I'm talking about people who are arrested who have been previously convicted of very dangerous crimes, and they are let back out, or people who are arrested for murder, who are let back out sometimes on just a personal recognizance bond.
That's Texas Governor Greg Abbott, whom we were honored to sit down with to discuss public safety for all Texans. We not only covered felony bond reform, but also the push to defund the police that has seemingly swept our nation. We talked about homelessness in Texas and ultimately answered this question: why has public safety become a political topic, and does that come at the cost of safety for all? Without further ado, here's your host, Brenya Mancarios.
On this week's episode of the Balanced Voice podcast, we were thrilled to sit down with Texas's own Governor Greg Abbott. We had many discussions about crime in Houston, crime across the state of Texas, and also trends we're seeing across the country. We want to hear what you think. Give us your thoughts, provide comments, send us your feedback, and we want to have balanced conversations. We don't have to all agree or be on the same page, but it's important that we talk and we come together for a solution. Share the material if you think that you find value in it. We certainly hope you do. And most of all, we thank Governor Abbott for his time. We want to continue having these conversations with city leaders, county leaders, state leaders here and across the country with the ultimate goal of providing solutions again for all. Thank you for being with us, Governor Abbott. Welcome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great to see you again, and great to be back with you.
Listen, we're so thankful for your time, and we know time is limited. So I want to jump into 3 main issues here that we're excited to talk to you about. The first is the area of defunding police. We know we've been studying certain crime trends across the country have gone up, certainly across the state of Texas. And we know there are multiple issues playing into this. The defund police movement, felony bail reform. We want to look specifically at the defund police movement. We know that social services are important, and we are a compassionate state, certainly a compassionate city here in Houston. And we want to pour into social services, but we don't believe it should be at the expense of local law enforcement. And I think you've been pretty clear on this topic. Can you talk to us about your position on cities across Texas that are looking to defund their police and what you'll do in response?
I'm happy to, and it fits right in, of course, with Crime Stoppers because it makes just sense that the primary objective of Crime Stoppers is to stop crime. And one tool necessary for us to be able to stop crime is to have the law enforcement officers who will help us to stop crime. So what we've seen across the United States over the past year are multiple efforts to defund police, to reduce police, and to reduce the role that they play going about the process of stopping crime. We've seen it in Portland, in Seattle, in Minneapolis, in Chicago, in New York, and the list goes on. Well, unfortunately, we also saw it happen here in Texas, here in Austin, Texas, where the city of Austin defunded police. They stripped more than $100 million out of their budget, at least $30 million of which went directly to paying for law enforcement officers themselves. Each year, there are cadet classes of new additional law enforcement officers or police officers who would join their forces. And the cadet class was canceled, meaning that they are not going to have any new incoming police officers, while at the same time they're shedding police officers. And what this does is a couple of things. One is it makes it far more difficult for the law enforcement officers to enforce the law, to go out and make the arrests they need to make sure that they are keeping the streets free from crime. But there's a second thing that this does, and that is it sends a message to the public that there aren't going to be law enforcement officers there. It sends a message to the public that police don't matter, that police can be disrespected, and that is the wrong message. Texas is a law and order state, and we're going to keep it that way. So for the members of this audience that may not know, Texas just began a legislative session that ends at the end of May. And one of the primary pieces of legislation that I had proposed to the legislature to pass is to pass legislation that will defund any city that defunds police. Defunding police makes it physically impossible for residents in that community to be safe. And my goal is to make it fiscally impossible for any city to defund police. And I feel very confident that legislation will pass and Texas will ensure that no city in Texas will be defunding police.
And I think the interesting thing here is, in general, we've lost the ability to have balanced conversations, and that's the point of this podcast. And a lot of people have said, in an effort to punish police, we need to defund them. And that goes hand in hand with increasing social services. And we've always made the argument that we can look at reforming law enforcement. We were part of the mayor's task force here, working with HPD Chief Art Acevedo to reform police. But the notion of punishing law enforcement, it's coming from the wrong perspective. And on the other hand, we should be working, we're a nonprofit ourselves, we should be working to build up social services, but they do not stand apart from each other. We can work on both at the same time. So I'm curious, we should be following the legislation and see where this lands.
This balanced conversation is made possible by Brigitte and Bashar Kalai, Hallie Vanderheider, Sippy and AJ Karana, and Deepwater Productions. If you're interested in furthering our mission of facilitating balanced conversations, offering real solutions, contact us at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com.
Governor Abbott, the next issue we're fighting with here and we're really grappling with is citizens who care about public safety. And by the way, that means caring about every individual that lives in the state of Texas. It doesn't matter gender, race, creed, none of that matters. We care about the public safety of all. Over a year ago, Crime Stoppers of Houston began sounding the alarm on felony bond reform. And you recently shared on social media, and I quote, you said Crime Stoppers noticed that criminals charged with murder had been released on multiple felony bonds, bond forfeiture, or personal bond. And you ended by saying this must end. What is your strategy to combat this?
Well, first, Houston Crime Stoppers has highlighted a very dangerous problem that we have in the state of Texas that is growing worse. And that is through the bail system, very dangerous criminals are being released out onto the streets. And when I say criminals, I'm talking about people who aren't just arrested of violating a law. I'm talking about people who are arrested who have been previously convicted of very dangerous crimes and they are let back out, or people who are arrested for murder, who are let back out sometimes on just a personal recognizance bond. And it makes the streets far more dangerous. And there's one particular person in particular that is kind of at the heart of a new law that I'm proposing in the state of Texas. It's a former Department of Public Safety trooper, Damon Allen. Damon Allen as a trooper, made a traffic stop of someone who had been let out on a $15,500 bond, who had previously been convicted of assaulting a peace officer, as well as other violent crimes. The person should never have been out on bail, but he was. And during that traffic stop, he killed the Department of Public Safety trooper, Damon Allen. And so Damon Allen is the face of this law we want to pass. It will protect so many lives in the state of Texas. And what it does is It's a law proposal that's going to make it a whole lot harder for judges to be releasing dangerous criminals back on the street. And in doing so, it'll make our community safer.
And to reiterate the point, sir, we've had people that will come to us and say, you're not showing compassion for those who just simply cannot afford bail. You're not showing compassion for people who commit low-level offenses. And I think people are misunderstanding the point. There has been a sweeping reform on misdemeanor bond reform. And actually, we've agreed with it. It's necessary. A lot of people in this space have said it makes sense. It's justifiable. If you've committed a low-level offense, a first-time offense, you're in the misdemeanor category, it's okay. There's no reason for you to be sitting in jail because you simply cannot pay your bail. But we're specifically looking here at violent felony habitual offenders, people who have not just committed a violent felony offense once, but twice, 3 times. And now we're tracking people who have been let out maybe 9 times in just a span of a year or so, just because we don't want to now hold anybody accountable to anything. And it's setting up a really precarious situation for the residents, but it's also dangerous for these defendants who go back out and their crimes escalate. So we always say, if you really, to the community who has the compassion for this, think of the full picture and the victims that need to be that will be re-victimized, the community that's being impacted, and also these suspects who we actually should step in as a community and support. So again, I think your thoughts on that and the fact that we're able to work together on that is very meaningful.
Are you interested in staying up to date on the latest Houston area crime trends? Today, we are thrilled to announce the launch of our new webpage dedicated to keeping our community informed on the latest Houston area crime trends and our felony bond reform findings. Visit crime-stoppers.org/crime-trends to learn more and get involved. And remember, it takes all of us to create safe, happy, and healthy communities for all.
I want to look at homelessness. In a recent tweet, you said, quote, "If Austin doesn't reinstate the ban on homeless camping, the state will do it for them." You go on to say, homelessness prompted by Austin has also endangered public safety. We're seeing a surge of homeless camps across many cities in Texas. I know in Austin, you've placed DPS and additional patrols on in light of some recent stabbings that have taken place there. What do we do as communities? What do we do when we see these camps popping up? Well, we have a heart and compassion for these individuals, but we also care about the public safety of our cities.
So candidly, it's very easy, and that is the problem really accelerated in Austin, Texas, when the Austin City Council decided to repeal their ban on public camping, and all of a sudden, the public camping began to proliferate. But when we talk about public camping, it is really kind of candy coating what's happening. It's not just people who were sleeping in tents under bridges or on green spaces within the city. What's really taking place is there are people who are, I hate to say this, but they're defecating, they're urinating. There are needles all over town that are left behind by the homeless. And you talked about the stabbings, and there have been a significant number of stabbings, as well as other violent crimes, as well as murders, as well as arson, and things like that taking place where public safety is now endangered because of this. But you also make another good point, and that is these are human beings that we're dealing with, and we need to show them a level of compassion. We need to understand first, however, that allowing people to sleep, lie, and defecate and urinate wherever they want to is not showing compassion either for the homeless or for the homeowners who are paying property taxes in Texas. A better solution is exactly what I, as governor, have done in the state of Texas. I set up a 5-acre plot of land that is held by the Texas Department of Transportation. And I said, if you want to camp out as homeless, you can use this 5 acres, and the state of Texas isn't going to charge you a penny. And we provided them also access to the medical care providers and the food providers that had previously been working with them on the street corner, as well as the potential for job training to help them find a pathway out of homelessness. And that is exactly a similar approach that cities across the state can and should follow, in addition to working with the multitude of different facilities in different cities. In San Antonio, there's Haven for Hope. If I recall correctly, the name in the Houston area, I think There's the STAR mission as well as others. I know there are some in Dallas. There's some in all cities that we need to get behind. But we must agree on a fundamental principle, and that is allowing homeless to sleep and camp and urinate and defecate wherever they want is not compassionate for anybody. It's not helping the homeless, and it's not helping cities. And so what I am seeking to do in this legislative session is to pass a statewide ban allowing people to sleep, lie, urinate, and defecate wherever they want to, and require cities to step up and provide a better, more compassionate pathway for the homeless.
And after the year we've just had, and a few years we've just had, really after this last year, the notion, and this is sort of the last question I'd love to ask your thoughts on, the notion of public safety in general has become politicized. And I've been with Crime Stoppers since 2006, have been fortunate enough to run it since 2013. And I've never seen this type of response to just simple notions of safety, wanting to ensure safety for all. What is your message to Texans across the state who, again, we care about each other? This is an incredible state where people love one another. We support one another. We saw it first and foremost during Hurricane Harvey. We see it all the time across the state. What is your message to other citizens who care about public safety and this new push to politicize it?
Listen, if we care about each other, that means we don't want people to be victims of crimes. We definitely don't want them to be murdered, assaulted, raped, abused, or robbed. And the best way we can have a safe state, a state that continues to lead the United States in new jobs and economic development, is making sure that we have laws that are enforced, while at the same time making sure that we do have the ability to show compassion of those who need it. But we can also enforce the rule of law for those who violate our laws and hurt others.
Governor Greg Abbott, governor of the great state of Texas, we're so thankful that you took the time to be with us this morning. We wish you all the best. Thank you again, Governor.
Thank you. Great to see you. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Runya's work by following her at The Runya Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.